The most important thumb over there.
That's okay.
All right. Today is Thursday, December 16th. This is the time and place for the regularly scheduled members. If you would please rise and join us in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, has our agenda been posted in accordance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it has.
All right, at this time, I would like to remind anyone coming to the podium to speak today that you speak directly into the microphone, that you speak as clearly as possible, particularly because we're wearing masks. And this meeting is being transmitted electronically and being transcribed, so it's important that we can understand you. We're going to, Madam Secretary, proceed with our first agenda item, public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
Okay, so anyone who wishes to address the commission may do so at this time. Matters brought to our attention during public comment cannot be acted upon, but we are happy to hear comments of the public as well as my fellow commissioners. Excuse me. Comments by all will be limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If any of my fellow commissioners or myself ask questions of the public, the time needed to address those questions will not be held against the time constraints. I will first go to Carson City. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please step forward to the podium. I'm sorry, I can't see.
There's no one in Carson City. There's no one in Carson City.
Is there any concern about the note that says recess?
Until someone speaks into the microphone in Carson, it will not pop up.
Okay, it not appearing to have anyone in Carson City that wishes to make public comment. At this time in Las Vegas, if you wish to make a comment, would you please step forward to the podium? Ma'am, if you could state your name for the record and spell it.
Susie Martinez, SUSIE MARTINEZ.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair Tagliata and members of the Nevada Gaming Commission. My name is Susie Martinez, and I'm the Executive Secretary of the Nevada AFL-CIO. Today, I have the honor to come before you to introduce two of the 1,100 brave workers who have been on strike at the Warrior Met coal mine in Alabama since April. They are members of the United Mine Workers of America, one of the pioneering labor unions in our country. Their strike at Warrior Met has drawn national attention and has the full support of the entire labor movement. These strikers have come all the way to Las Vegas to speak to you today because they believe that Apollo Global Management has a moral responsibility to settle the Warrior Met strike. Apollo is, of course, no stranger to those of us in Nevada, given its previous and disastrous ownership of Caesars Entertainment. The private firm is now in the process of buying another major casino in Nevada, which will require your approval. We share the Warrior Met strikers' belief in Apollo's responsibility for settling the strike. And before Alan and Sean speak, I want to give you some quick background as to why. I've also brought copies of a recent letter from 3 US senators to Apollo about what the firm did at Warrior Met and for your information. Do we have a clerk that I could hand these to? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
After the mining company Walter Energy filed for Chapter 11 in 2015, its creditors included Apollo, took its coal mine assets in Alabama and formed a new company, Warrior Met. In the process, liabilities such as health benefits for retired coal miners were offloaded and the previous collective bargaining agreement was discarded. Apollo and other owners of Warrior Met then paid themselves $190 million from the company's cash on hand before its IPO in 2017, and then paid themselves another $600 million with cash and debt after the IPO. In the meantime, Warrior Met's mine workers had to work under a new contract that provided for lower wages and worse benefits than before. In a recent investor event, the CEO of Apollo explains that The firm's business model is actually very simple. We raise money, we invest money, and we take care of our people. He went on to say that what is the product we offer our investors at the end of the day? I'd say we offer only one product, and that product is judgment. Please keep these words in mind as you listen to the strikers, which people in is Apollo committed to taking care of people? Only those who work at Apollo. How about the people who work at the companies Apollo owns and controls? And why did Apollo make the judgment to pay itself special dividends when the company's coal miners were working at a 20% lower wages and getting worse health benefits than before? Is this the kind of private equity judgment that is suitable for the Nevada gaming industry? Now, if you'd allow me, I'd like to present two representatives of the United Mine Workers. I have Alan Battles and Sean Bradley. Could you please come up, please? Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, please spelling your name for the record.
Alan Battles, ALANBATTLES.
Thank you.
I've worked down at Warrior Met, which was Jim Walters Resources, for 17 years. 2015, they went into bankruptcy. During 2015, when we went into bankruptcy, it was payroll cut, our pay was cut, our insurance was cut. We lost friends that had health issues, that couldn't afford help anymore. They committed suicide, along with their wife tried to as well after the fact. During the process of working through this time, when we come up on strike, 2 weeks into the strike of April 1st, when we went on strike, we had one of our union brothers wasn't going to leave his family in a bind, in no way of knowing how he was going to provide for his family. So it was an insurance claim on suicide. Due to the time in the bankruptcy, and when we was asked for more stuff, when we was promised to get stuff back, we've been told the whole time, you won't get nothing. You're not worth what you're getting now. It's a take it or leave it. You come to work here, you leave. 2018, another guy, prostate cancer, working at the mines. 4-strike policy. You go to the doctor, on your 4th strike, you're fired. You was out 1 day, that's a strike. You was out 2 days, that was 2 strikes. Prostate cancer. He quit going to the doctor, come to work that way he could provide for his family. Died because he couldn't get the health care that he needed and keep a job too. During this time, we worked 12-hour shifts for a long time. And on that 12-hour shifts, we worked till the next crew come in to relieve us. And we would be there 14 to 16 hours some days. And then have to be there the next morning after we got out, traveled home and come back. There have been times that I was there and they give me a strike or try to give a strike after I was there 20 hours because we had ignition underground. Had a fire, put the fire out. Federal investigators come in and want to talk about the situation of the fire. Well, we'd be there 20 plus hours. Then it rocked on there. You had to be there at work or you didn't have a job. I let my buddy Sean talk.
Thank you.
Sean Bradley. I just want to reiterate that, when Warrior Matt took over, Apollo came in. We have about 1,100 miners. We give $1.1 billion in concessions is what we gave up. That's awful lot. It took a lot of our pay, our health care. I've got a wife that has fibromyalgia that has a lot of health care. So that on top of that, losing the health care, I also lost a lot more money because I got to pay more health care. I just want to tell you, Apollo's going to come knocking at y'all's door is what it sounds like. And don't let them do what they did to us out here in Nevada.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. If you don't mind, is your last name with an EY or a Y?
Ley.
Thank you. Okay, is there, thank you for your appearance today. I appreciate it.
Thank y'all for having us.
And keeping to the 3 minutes. It's impressive. Anybody else wish to make public comment? All right, that will close our public comment section. Madam Secretary, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the prior month's disposition.
Pursuant to NRS 241.035, this item is the consideration of the approval of the Nevada Gaming Commission disposition for November of 2021.
Each of us has had the opportunity to review the disposition. If there's no questions, do one of you have a motion?
Sure, Madam Chair. I move for approval of the prior month's disposition.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And aye, so there's none opposed. Thank you. Madam Secretary, if you could please read in the non-restricted consent items.
You have one item on non-restricted consent agenda this morning. That item is non-restricted number 11. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. For the record, items 2 and 3 were removed from the agenda. I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Thank you so much. I do have a disclosure relating to non-restricted number 11. A client of Blue Sorokas is Love's Travel Stop, the firm where I'm a partner, and it's adverse to Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores, Inc. in an unrelated matter and for a different location from the application that's before us today. Notwithstanding that, I still wanted to make the disclosure. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item, and I don't believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no questions, I think these items are in proper form for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval of non-restricted item number 11 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Gaming Control.
Okay, any discussion on the Vice Chair's motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it appears there's none opposed. Thank you. Madam Secretary, if you could read in the restricted consent items.
Your items on restricted consent agenda this morning are items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with the limitations and conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have a disclosure on these items.
I do have a disclosure. Thank you for restricted item number 1. Century Gaming Technologies may be related to Century Games PTE Limited, a client of Blue Soroka, the firm where I'm a partner, in which matter I'm not personally involved. I make this disclosure in an abundance of caution because of the similarity of the names. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item. I do not believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate.
Okay, thank you. If there are no questions, Commissioner Keycapper? Sure. One, two, four, five, six. Yes. You had non-restricted, you have restricted 3, which is held out. So you can- Okay, there being no questions, I think it is in proper form for a motion.
Thank you, Chair Tagliani. I would move for approval of restricted items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and approved by the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion?
No?
There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It appears there's none opposed. Thank you. Right, at this time, Madam Secretary, I believe that brings us to our non-restricted agenda items held out for discussion. Please read in non-restricted number 1.
Non-restricted number 1 is the application of San Manuel Gaming and Hospitality Authority for registration as a holding company and sole member and manager of SMGHA Nevada LLC. It is also the applications of SMGHA LLC for registration as an intermediary company and the finding of suitability as sole member and manager of RRR Palms LLC, and the application of RRR Palms LLC for a transfer of interest. Lastly, you have the applications of Leticia Deanne Casas, Daron Marquez, Carla Melinda Rodriguez, Gerhard Lorenz Vosloo, and Aaron Marie Copeland for finding of suitability and or licensure as a controlling person, officers and or key executives as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with the conditions as noted on the agenda, and I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Okay, first, I'm wish to disclose that the attorneys in um, on this matter work for the Greenberg Traurig firm. Prior to my appointment as chair, I was hired by parties, different parties, to a lawsuit to mediate a case. One of the parties was represented by Greenberg Traurig, different attorney. Neither of these attorneys were involved in that matter, and there is nothing about her office representing a different, or your office representing a different client in a different matter that began before my appointment to the Gaming Commission that would cause a reasonable person's independent judgment to be affected by this relationship. Specifically, that is part 1 of my disclosure. Part 2 of my disclosure is that there appears in our materials, investigation materials that were provided to me, that there is a litigation that is pending, the Palms Place LLC litigation. I wish to disclose that in January of 2020, I became familiar with information in that lawsuit as part of my duties and profession in alternative dispute resolution. There is nothing about whatever knowledge I have about that case that has anything to do with this matter, in my opinion, and it would not cause a reasonable person's independent judgment to be affected by that event. And specifically, I have had no involvement in my EDR practice with that case since January of 20, and certainly not since being appointed to the commission. So for that reason, I intend to participate in this matter. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners. For the record, I am Mark Clayton, and along with my colleague Erica Oakberg, our Nevada Gaming Counsel to the San Manuel Gaming and Hospitality Authority. As indicated by the Executive Secretary, today's application is for the San Manuel Gaming and Hospitality Authority's acquisition from Station Casinos of RRR Palms LLC, which indirectly owns and operates the Palms Casino Resort in Palms Place. The Nevada Gaming Control Board unanimously recommended approval of the various applications. As we all know, one of the hallmarks of Nevada's gaming regulatory control is its consistency in licensing. The San Manuel Gaming and Hospitality Authority governance structure has been based upon Nevada's licensing approach since 2003 for private equity investments. The GHA and its oversight of the Palms is separate and independent from the balance of the tribe. All of the individuals who can exert control or influence over the Palms are before you today as applicants. This is codified in the San Manuel Gaming and Hospitality law, as well as the applicant's independence was confirmed by the board agents and at the board hearing. Consistent with the private equity model and at the board's request, the tribal leadership has executed the standard non-interference letter that reaffirms both the applicant's independence to oversee and operate the Palms and asserts that there'll be no attempt for unlicensed tribal members to influence or interfere with the Palms. For clarity, I note that the board members provided at the hearing that there was no evidence or even any hint that anyone other than the applicants before you today have exerted or will exert control or influence. We've been advised by the board staff that the non-interference letter was administratively approved by the chairman of the board. So in sum, before the commission today is a governance structure that has been approved and accepted by the commission since 2003. as affirmed by the board, in the individuals who would control the palms are before the commission as applicants. And these applications come to the commission with the board's unanimous approval. Lastly, we have provided a presentation, which we requested to be treated as confidential and not be made part of the public record. So with those introductory remarks, if it pleases the chair, I would ask Letitia Cassis, the chair of the GHA board, to come and make a presentation. Next, Lauren Vosloo, the tribe CEO, will make a presentation. And then we'll close the affirmative presentation with Cindy Kaiser Murphy, the proposed general manager for the Palms.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
Chair and Commissioners. Tommy Tunch. Monumental, historic, humbling. These are the words that best describe this milestone moment for San Manuel. I'd like to share a few significant milestones in our tribe's history. In 1866, our tribe and all Native people from the San Bernardino Mountains to the Colorado River suffered a month-long attack by militias supported by the California governor. My great-great-grandfather, Santos Manuel, led our remaining 30 people to safety from this 32-day massacre that was meant to exterminate us. His leadership provided the will for us to survive. His leadership taught our people resilience, and his leadership is the reason we exist today. In 1891, the Act of Relief for Mission Indians was passed, which recognized San Manuel's inherent right to self-govern as a sovereign nation and established our reservation with only a few hundred acres. We lived in poverty for decades. In 1966, we established our governing document that helped bring running water to the reservation and better the conditions for our people. In 1975, the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act was signed into law. The act allowed San Manuel and all federally recognized tribes to exercise our retained inherent right to self-governance. With our government recognized, our independence intact, and the future before us, we began to explore opportunities. In 1980s, we saw our first chance at self-reliance. We took a leap of faith, and with much hard work, we opened up our bingo hall in 1986. We recognize this as our chance for self-sustainability for our people. In 2000s, we saw a great potential to expand our successful gaming operation. Through the efforts of our dedicated and talented teams, our business prospered. At this point, we saw a need to take advantage of the blessings we had received to date. So in 2008, we created an investment board with the intention of securing the future for all generations so our people would not have to live in poverty again. As the success of our business continued, we saw opportunities to build on our experience and expand our footprint. So in 2019, we established the San Manuel Gaming and Hospitality Authority to strategically diversify the tribe's investments and expand off the reservation. We have evolved our businesses and evolved our skills. We have humbly, yet confidently, become successful investors in gaming, hospitality, real estate, and other assets. We are very intentional of living our values to honor our ancestors, culture, and sovereignty for all generations, and responsibility to support our local communities because we were supported by the kindness of others when we had very little. Our tribe is now one of the largest employers in the Inland Empire region of Southern California, and we have assembled a talented team. We see and treat our team members like family, and we intend to bring those values to Las Vegas. We are not a corporation focused principally on quarterly results. We are a tribe. We have the long-term focus, and that long-term focus is to secure a future for generations in perpetuity. We know that Las Vegas is and will always be the gaming and entertainment hub in North America, and we are honored to potentially join and contribute to this community and its legacy. We also recognize that Las Vegas is the homeland of the Moapa Band of Paiute Indians, We are grateful to our sisters and brothers for their hospitality and for making us feel welcome on their indigenous lands. We sincerely appreciate the efforts of the many participants that have brought us thus far. We are honored to stand before you as prospective licensees to be the first Native American tribe to own and operate a casino and hotel in Las Vegas. Hakupa'i, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
And if it pleases the chair, I'll ask Lauren Bosley to join me at the podium to then provide an overview of the San Manuel tribe and in which he is CEO.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. It's an honor and a privilege to stand in front of you today and provide you with a little bit more information about the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. I'm going to cover a couple of highlights on the books that are in front of you and starting on page 9. But the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians is a self-governing nation that have established a number of entities and departments to support the nation. And I'll just mention a few that they have. The first one is the Department of Public Health, Department of Public Safety, Department of Construction and Development, the Strategic Philanthropy Department, and then also the San Manuel Fire Department. Charitable giving is a cornerstone for the tribe, and it's really based on 4 pillars that the tribe gives. And the tribe likes to mention that they like to give a hand up as opposed to a hand out, but it's really focused on 4 key cornerstones, starting with empowering lives, reinforcing healthy and resilient communities, inspiring the future through education, and finally preserving culture, tradition, and empowering Indian country. And over the years, since 2003, tribe's given out almost close to $300 million to many, many different organizations and charities, with 47.5% of those being above $1 million each. It's not only limited to Southern California or California, but the tribe over the last couple of years, as we started looking at Las Vegas, have identified 21 different entities within Las Vegas and have started providing and giving to those entities too, as they believe it's their duty to give back to the community, and that's even before we started. Our chairperson touched on the reasons why Las Vegas, but we do believe that Las Vegas is the gaming mecca of the United States and is poised for a rebound, as we've seen over the last 6 months, and we're very excited about being part of this rebound. We do believe Palms is a high quality near strip asset priced below replacement cost. Our general manager will talk a little bit more about that, but the previous owners have put in significant amount of capital to get that property ready, and we're very excited to take it over. As we also believe that San Manuel can leverage its strategic philanthropy and sports partnerships in Las Vegas to expand the tribe's reach and strengthen its brand. And as our chairperson said, Palms represents the next phase of San Manuel long-term diversification strategy and has the potential to be a generational asset for the tribe. And we're very excited about continuing that journey for the tribe. And then San Manuel would become the first Native American tribe to own and operate a Vegas casino resort. From a Palms capital structure standpoint, we've got everything ready to go and set up from a capital structure standpoint. There's really 2 funding mechanisms that we use. The first is a $200 million loan from the tribe's sovereign wealth fund, or the Habitan LLC fund. And the second is a $550 million revolving line of credit for a total of $750 million. The total purchase price is $650 million for the property, but we've put aside $100 million for working capital and pre-opening costs to make sure we can adequately address those in preparation for the opening. And with that, if there's no questions, I will turn it over to our general manager, Cindy Kaiser-Murphy.
Thank you.
And just as some of the commissioners may know, Cindy Kaiser-Murphy used to be the senior executive with MGM. She currently has an application on file and it's working its way through the system. So,
thank you. Good morning, Chair Tagliati and commissioners and secretary. There really are no words to describe what a privilege it is and how humbling it is to be before you today. And in my role as general manager, it's to assemble a powerful team and to get 1,200 Nevadans back to work and really to reopen the beautiful Palms and bring it to life. And I'm so passionate about developing people. I have a career mostly in Las Vegas, right on the Strip, developing teams and furthering the hospitality industry, creating amenities and developing people. And I'm super excited to do this today. In your presentation book, starting on page 15, we've put together a few highlights we thought you might be interested in to talk about the Palms property. The Palms facility is incredibly beautiful. And one of the most historic aspects about this moment in time is the property was so meticulously remodeled and in such tremendous, tremendous order. Our job is to now fire it up with getting it reopened after it'll be 2 years from the closure and to get the people hired. And so the property is beautiful. We have 100,000 square foot of gaming space. We have beautiful rooms, 1,300 plus rooms. We have 23 restaurants, over 1,400 slots, and 55 table games. And the property is in incredible order. I can tell you that from going through the tours and looking at the facility, there are suites in this property that are like none anywhere in any city and really, really important for bringing this product back to Las Vegas. We also have 14 state-of-the-art movie theaters, and we're going to be reprogramming and bringing the sportsbook back, and now to celebrate the wonderful sports teams we have here in Las Vegas. So we're extremely excited about that. There's very little capital improvement needed for this property because, as said, the current owners not only remodeled it, but took care of it in meticulous order. That being said, we have to fire up a building that hasn't been occupied for a few years, so we have a little bit of work to do there. As far as capital investment, we are going to remodel the back of the house and make the employee facilities more appealing. We've got some art to replace. We've got the sportsbook technology to update, and of course, get the parking lot and get the landscaping refreshed and make the Flamingo Corridor much more beautiful and an important part of the community. The Palms Place residential tower has been open, and it'll be important for us to get some of the facilities back in line, and we'll be working on that over the coming weeks and months. Should we be granted the license we're so privileged to talk to you about today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our commitment to people, and we have a very comprehensive diversity strategy. Many members of our team have pioneered diversity programs throughout the industry, and we're proud to bring that to the Palms and to partner with the community and all of the agencies and bring the culture and the wonderful values of San Manuel to Las Vegas. And that will be our job, is to bring that foundation and those principles to our workforce and to our community. We're extremely excited about our diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments. As far as hiring our team, the first very, very important step is to welcome back the former Palms employees. Not only comply with SB 386, but to really go after and have a welcoming presence to bring the Palms people back. So we'll be doing that in the month of January. In February and March, we'll be reaching out to the community and inviting new people to come and work for us so that we can get open in the spring. We'll be hosting community hiring events. We'll be all over the community. We'll have online, but we're also going to take a very high-touch approach, reach into the community and host some receptions and opportunities for people in various community agencies to apply for positions. The Palms Place property, which is open today, it's operating as a condo hotel. We have some refreshing to do in there and get some of the facilities back online, and to welcome those employees into our family and representing GHA and help educate them about San Manuel and the important work they have to do to bring Palms and reopen to the community. Really, we are incredibly excited about the future. Our team is up to 23 people, and we will go to over 1,200, between 1,200 and 1,400, and with plans to open in the spring. So we have a ton of work to do, and we are honored to be here today, and we hope to welcome you all back to the Palms very soon. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Chair, Commissioners, that concludes our affirmative presentation, so we're happy to answer any questions. Obviously, the individual applicants are here as well, but I think the board brought those individuals up, so if there's any particular questions, obviously they're available as well.
Start on this side.
Would it be possible to have the individual applicants come up and
I'll
just
do-
give a brief introduction?
Yeah, sure. I'll ask my colleague Erica Oakberg to join us.
Morning, Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Erica Okerberg. If acceptable, I would like to bring up each of the individuals and just have them provide a brief background for you. So first, I'd like to start with Letitia Cassis, the Chair of the GHA Board.
Hi, Letitia Casas. I am the chairperson of San Manuel Gaming Hospitality Authority Board. My role is to oversee governance, strategy, and implementation of that strategy alongside with my fellow board members. I am a graduate of the University of Redlands. I received my degree in BS in business. I have also completed a program at Harvard Business School for specialized fiduciary training. Anything else? Any good? Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would like to bring up Darren Marquez, Vice Chair of the GHA Board.
Morning.
Good morning, Darren Marquez. Do I spell my name?
We have your name.
Okay, good. Yeah. Real quick, I am Vice Chair of the GHA. Before coming on this position, I did serve as the tribal chair from October 1999. I know I look young. To the end of March 2006. I fulfilled many posts for the tribe throughout the years. By way of educational background, I did attend the University of Arizona as an undergrad. I did some work at San Francisco State University in ethnic studies. I transferred from there down to Claremont, where I received my master's and PhD in politics and government.
Thank you. And next, I would like to call up Carla Rodriguez, the Secretary of the GHA Board.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carla Rodriguez, and I have worked with the tribe for a great many years. I'm the oldest person here. I'm considered an elder of the tribe. So I've worked with the tribe under many different committees. But this I hold close and dear to my heart because this is something that I feel is very needed for our tribe to expand. In 2008, I sat on the investment board in building that to get us to where we are today. And I'm grateful to be able to stand here today and say, I can actually see it, smell it, and see you all and say, this is real. It's very important. I'm also a former chairperson of the tribe, and I was the gaming commissioner for the tribe for 4 years, setting up the initial background investigations of all of our employees at that time and putting them through that. I love what I do. I love everything about everything that our tribe represents, which I make sure that it represents as an elder, everything that is dignified to our tribe, and to make sure that we do continue on a very positive path. I don't have the formal education, but I have the life education, and I'm very grateful for that and thankful for that because I grew up when the tribe was in poverty. And I thank you for everything that you're sitting there listening to us and learning about us, and I thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, he spoke earlier, but I would like to now bring up Lawrence Foslu, who's the CEO, CFO of FP Holdings and a management committee member.
Thank you.
Good morning again. My name is Lawrence Voslu. I'm the CEO for San Manuel Band of Mission Indians and also a management committee member for the GHA. I've been with San Manuel for just over 7 years, and before that lived in Las Vegas for 17 years. Graduated from UNLV with a dual major, and after that worked at Deloitte for 7 years, got my CPA, and then also worked at Las Vegas Sands for 5 years after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I would like to bring up another management committee member, Erin Copeland.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Erin Copeland. I'm a management committee member for the Gaming and Hospitality Authority. I've worked with San Manuel for over 30 years, both as outside counsel and in-house counsel, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it back over to my colleague, Mr. Clayton, for any questions on the applications before you.
As I said, obviously, we have any of the applicants or other people here that can respond to any questions the commission may have.
Mr. Clayton, with respect to the hiring plan of the
I'm sorry,
1,200,
which plan? I'm sorry.
with respect to the hiring
Oh, yes.
plan,
Mhm.
you had, I understand you're going to hire like 1,200 employees.
That's correct.
How many of those are former employees that,
Well, we'll bring up Cindy Kaiser Murphy, who's heading up the plan, but I believe the effort is to obtain as many as we can.
So our goal would be to get as many of the Palms employees back as possible. We launched a website a few weeks ago asking them to sign up so we'd have contact information for them. And we're in this labor market, we're hoping that 500-600 would come back, and we're hoping more, but trying to be realistic and planning. And then we'll secure that workforce first, restoring all their benefits and their seniority, and then go and hire from the community after that.
and that touched on my second question was, with respect to the former employees that are interested in coming back into their positions, are you planning on restoring their seniority?
Yes, we
their
are.
benefits?
And their benefits would be effective immediately. We've worked hard so that we'll have zero lapse in any benefit programs.
And I understand from the materials that you're also working with the different labor unions too.
Yes, we
You're
are.
still in discussions
We're
with them
looking
as well.
forward to labor partnerships around training, around healthcare, around hiring, and being all in with a community approach to that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
While Ms. Murphy is up here, wanted to also give you an update. If you remember before the board, there was a discussion regarding who would be operating the sports book, and I think we're able to address that.
Yes, we're very proud to have entered into an agreement with William Hill. And in the process, we obviously have to update technology. If you leave your TV turned off for 2 years, you don't know if it's going to come back on. And so we're working on that. And guess what? There's work to do. And also bringing, now that we have more sports teams, and really bringing that into the Palm sports book. So we're very excited about that.
On that note, do you expect that the sports book is going to be online by the time of that you reopen the property?
Should I say what I want to say?
No, I'll say it for you so
Okay.
they can get mad at me. William Hill and the FP Holdings have filed the necessary applications. So obviously we'd love for that to be, but right now that's in the board's court. I will not be presumptuous enough to tell the board or ask the board when we're going to get out of the licensing queue, but the applications are on file. And obviously William Hill, well-known, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but processes, the controls are pretty much standard across their portfolio. So I would imagine that there wouldn't be any surprises in the application for the board staff to work through. But
Right, and that's why I asked, because of the timing. I mean, it's, you know, you're.
ideally we'd like to, but obviously we understand that it's outside of our control.
Perfect. And you said, you indicated, I believe, either in your presentations or in the materials, there's been upkeep of the property throughout the time that it's been closed.
That's correct. Yeah, the current owners, Station Casinos, has been maintaining the property. But again, one of the examples that was given to me is just all of a sudden start turning on water flows again, and you got seals that have sat dry for 2 years. There's a lot of testing, and the last thing we want to do is open up something and then all of a sudden have a flood. And our friend Howard Stutz and others will be reporting on the flood at the Palms rather than on the good news of the Palms reopening. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find similar issues with some of your gaming devices.
Yes, no, exactly. And there's a whole amount of work that's just got to be done because it's been sitting there, you know, as indicated, some TVs may not work and we got to go through rooms and all of that, but we can't do any of that. We don't want to get anywhere close to gun jumping until hopefully after our successful hearing today. Then the goal would be to close tomorrow, get the proverbial keys, and then Cindy's team at all can start running at that point.
Has Palms Place been operating throughout the entire time that the property's been closed?
Yes.
Yes, we understand that there might have been a brief period at the beginning of the pandemic, but there are owners that live in there. And just to add to what Mark had said, the owners have been meticulous about the water testing and the water quality and running water, which we all know has to happen. That has all happened. So we're hopeful that just the kinds of things that happen to buildings, but we believe that they've been very meticulous in keeping it in great shape.
Thank you.
We have Commissioner Cohen has some.
Thank you, Chair Tagliati. Before I get into a couple of legal questions, which I think Mr. Clayton may have to answer, I have a question for you regarding the operations. How do you envision Palms when you reopen regarding the clientele? In our reading materials, I see where, you're going to lose, of course, the station casinos rewards system, and you're bringing in the tribal reward system, which contains a lot of bases. Is it going to be local flavor? Is it going to be a mix? What is going to be your marketing strategy?
Well, thank you for asking. We have a very, very strong plan we're putting together going currently after locals, of course. That's a very important part of it. The San Manuel database, as you know, 67% of Las Vegas visitor volumes coming from Southern California. Yamava is an extremely successful property in Southern California. And as wonderful as that is, Las Vegas is still Las Vegas. So we hope to provide a wonderful home away from home for the Yamava customers. And certainly with the restaurants and the entertainment programming we'll be appealing to tourists. So it's really a three-part marketing strategy that we'll be building with our team that we'll be hiring in the next few weeks.
Very good. Now for the legal issues.
Thank you.
I realize that Mr. Ramirez is not before us for licensing.
That's correct.
But I have some questions regarding Mr. Ramirez. Regarding the money. Now, I understand the structure of your finance. It's great. I get it. And plus you have the backstop of Bank of America. You couldn't ask for anything better. And I understand the interest rate may be high for today, but it's being paid to the tribe. So I understand that too. I just want to make sure that in the capacity of Mr. Ramirez, that he, because of the fact that the note contains the ability to reborrow, does Mr. Ramirez sit on any committees that have to approve the reborrowing or approve anything to do with the funding of the property?
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. Both as presented in the deck, the funding, first of all, was not Palm specific. It was given, basically that amount of money was given to the GHA to decide how they wanted to implement it. But so as far as, and then that's been documented now by a credit agreement, which governs the terms of that. I know the staff has those. It's basically very standard agreements. But so there would be no mechanism through the loan for any individual, not singling out any one individual, but any tribal member, or to use the loan in any way to manipulate or control the applicants here or the operations in Las Vegas.
So any reborrow would be a ministerial documentation.
That's correct. Yeah.
Can I ask a related question?
Sure.
So at the time that I reviewed the investigation materials in this matter, there was discussion about not having the final financing documents, which presumably because they're not finalized.
No, they're
And the deal is
finalized or just execution, waiting for execution.
Okay, so you would have, or would you have any problem providing those to the board?
They'll just execute copies?
Yeah.
Of course not. No, no problem at all.
Okay. So if we made that a condition, would that be acceptable to you?
Well, the goal was to close tomorrow. So ideally it's changed, but I believe there shouldn't be any problem, Ms. Copeland, in getting the executed loan documents. Yeah, yeah. So
Or
that's
you could provide them within 90 days after. I mean, it's not a precedent, it's a, subsequent.
Yeah,
We
no,
just want a copy of it.
And understood, Chair Togley, and Audie, and obviously we're representing, we're going to provide it to the board upon execution.
Okay.
I would prefer not to have it as a condition just for the optics that I already, bored the board members with in my last discussion. But, obviously we can only make suggestions. We don't control your decisions.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but it
Oh,
was
no
related.
problem. Oh, no problem. Mr. Clayton, that satisfactorily allays my concern regarding Mr. Ramirez. And then just as a statement, I think I speak for my colleagues on the commission. We welcome your client to the state of Nevada. We welcome the reopening of the Palms. And hopefully when the vote is taken, that you'll walk out of here and you'll be closing this transaction tomorrow. But, the business plan is great. The financing is in place. you're doing what you need to do to get that property up and going. And at least, I thank you for that. And I thank the people who've made affirmative presentations here and you built a quality staff. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. On behalf of the applicants and the Gaming and Hospitality Board, thank you for those words.
I do have a follow-up question about Mr. Ramirez, if I may.
Yes.
Sir, I did receive the December 13th non-interference letter
Yes.
in our materials. I just received that. And I think it helps address some of the concerns that I had related to Mr. Ramirez's prior arrests and probation violations involving the felony possession and controlled substance issues and firearms and all of that. Is it an accurate recitation of the record that Mr. Ramirez refused to speak with investigators? Is that true or not?
No, that's not true.
So he did speak with them?
Well, Ms. Okerberg can correct me if I misstate something, but the investigators asked for all the leaders of the various committees and councils. We provided that. I had a discussion with staff. There was talk. It's like, he's not an applicant, nor are any of the other general counsel, and that's the structure. No different than, in the private setting, the chairman of Goldman Sachs is not an applicant when Goldman Sachs came in, or Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan. So it's just a matter of keeping it focused on the applicants before you and where the control resides.
So at no point did he refuse to answer any questions to any of the investigators?
No, he did not.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that. I do note that he's a chairman on a number of, committees and boards, and he has a lot of leadership positions with the tribe. And so I just wanted to make sure, can you report for the record, were there any other incidents after the matter was terminated, the criminal matter was terminated in October of 2010? Has anything else happened in terms of his?
He's not a client. He's not an applicant.
Okay.
So I honestly, he's a private individual who has his own private information. So I couldn't respond to that now.
Can anybody here respond?
No.
No? I'm a little bit troubled that we don't have information about that, but notwithstanding that, I do note that we have the December 13th non-interference agreement, and that does help me. But I was hoping just to get a little bit of information on the record. I also wanted to note, this is the first off-reservation gaming operation for San Manuel band. And can somebody explain how they identified the Palms, how that was the location, that was the genesis of how you came to Las Vegas?
Yeah, obviously some of that's confidential given previous non-disclosure agreements, et cetera. But over 2 years ago, I first met with Aaron Copeland, Lauren Bosloo, and started discussing an entry model coming into the state of Nevada. And at that time, they had retained investment advisors. I believe in the appendix indicates the variety of professional advisors that have been involved in this process. And through those, through the investment banker, et cetera, obviously identified several properties that were at least of interest. And then they ultimately settled for the reasons articulated in the presentation, the rationale of why the Palms made the most sense for the tribe.
Thank you. I just wanted also to note for the record, I commend the tribe tremendously for being a community partner. I think they will be a very strong community partner here in Las Vegas. And there seems to be a long-standing history of charitable giving and working with the community. And I just think it's important to have the philanthropy as a part of the backbone and have community involvement. And I think the tribe is truly leading by example. And I just didn't want today to come and go without stating that for the record. It's commendable, and the volume and the amount of charitable involvement is tremendous. And so I wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. And as we indicated in the presentation, obviously we've already been contributing into this community long before they even spoke to me. So this,
Of course.
I think the words you heard from the applicants, they prove them by what they've done.
And then when I was watching the rump presentation and the board presentation as well, I know that at that time, that was a couple of weeks ago, the 432 room hotel on the reservation was about to open. Is everything open now? Can somebody
It
provide me
has
with an
opened, I believe,
update?
as of Monday, but why don't I have Lawrence give you an update on how
Thank
that
you.
went?
I'd appreciate that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, we did have a opening event on Monday. It was very successful. We held off the rain, and right after we got done, it started raining. But it was a 432 room hotel, and off with a running start, and everything's going very, very well. So we're excited to open that before year-end and have that be part of the tribe's portfolio.
Thank you, and congratulations on that. I just want to know if that was still on track because there's a
Yeah,
lot
it
going
was
on.
good. Thank you.
Can somebody answer, is Scotch 80s going to remain open? Will there be rebranding? I know there's nothing to remodel. It was absolutely beautiful. I just, as a local, I have to ask.
I love this because everybody asked, and yes, we are reopening Scotch 80. We're super
Wonderful.
excited. We're going to try to open as much as we can all at once to the prior points.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Callum Scotch.
Yes.
We will have a wonderful Scotch menu for you. For the community. We've had a lot of questions about it, so we're excited to bring Scotch
Yeah,
80
I
back.
I state the obvious. And then just quickly, I know there's a charitable giving group that's designated to look for charitable contributions. How many people sit on that? Who's in charge of that? And
I'll ask Lawrence Vosloo to return.
thank you. And is there a mission statement or something specific that you're looking for when you identify charitable?
Yeah,
Mm.
there is a group, I want to say there's probably between 3 and 5 individuals on that group. And as I stated earlier, we spent a lot of time with the tribe to identify what the tribe's mission statement and goal is around giving. And as I discussed earlier, there's really 4 pillars that it's around. And we spent a lot of time with the tribe discussing that, and the team vetting different entities that they give to. And then we've started talking to the GHI board about that too, and we'll follow a very similar process.
Thank you, Mr. Vosloo. And may I ask, I know you're from South Africa. I
Right.
came here from Munich, so it's a long way for me, but how did you end up in Las Vegas? And I went to UNLV as well. How did that
Okay.
happen?
I came to the US in 1997 on a swimming scholarship.
Oh.
And so that's how I ended up at UNLV and graduated there.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. A
Thank you.
wonderful
Someone
presentation.
else at UNLV, didn't you?
Oh, and my wife is from there too. Yeah. And so
Okay,
she was
see?
she's from Romania and was on a swimming scholarship too.
Excellent. Well,
Thank you.
I'm glad you're part of the Vegas family and welcome to the tribe. I'm very hopeful about the future and this wonderful symbiotic relationship. And I'm of course supportive. And I thank everybody for the excellent presentation and the materials. I know it takes a lot of time, and we are I am very excited to see what the tribe brings to Las Vegas. And I can tell already it's going to be very positive.
Thank you for those words.
Commissioner Keycover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Clayton, see you. I have a question regarding the non-interference letter.
Of course.
And I believe it's already been approved by the board chair. Mr. Gibson, if you approved this letter pursuant to the condition?
Commissioner Kika, yes, I've reviewed it. It does set, we've gone back and forth actually with GHA, and we've made some amendments, but I think it satisfies the condition.
I appreciate that.
And by going back and forth, that they suggested some changes and they were immediately accepted. So
That's the best kind of back and forth.
we did not have a negotiating position of strength, so shall we say.
Absolutely.
They skipped the fourth.
But again, just for the record, I try to make light of it, but they were honestly genuinely non-substantive. And with this non-interference agreement letter was what was used in prior deals. Goldman Sachs is one example I constantly cite to. So it was just a matter of they wanted some additional words in there that I didn't include. It was nothing untoward and didn't expand, in my view, the letter one way or the other. But obviously, the chairman is the one that approves it, so he carries it.
I appreciate that. And so I'm obviously new to this process, and I'm not familiar with the tribal laws either. So is it your position that this letter will remain in effect absent any changes in tribal leadership? So the signatories on the letter are, the tribal council, the chairman. But if there's a new election and this turns over, does this letter remain in effect, or would it have to be re-executed?
No, this letter is already in effect with one caveat. So it's already signed on behalf of the nation as well as the GHA board members. The only thing that would change is if there was a new GHA board member, we'd want them to sign up to this. But the tribe as a whole is bound to this letter, and a change in tribal leadership doesn't change the letter agreement. And I believe that's consistent with how we've done private equity deals in the past. If there's a change in management, we don't re-execute the letter from the person providing the letter.
Okay. So it is on behalf of the tribe universally from here on forward.
That is correct.
And I actually had another question for Ms. Kaiser Murphy. It's good to see you again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've heard mixed, I guess I've gotten mixed feedback on the rehiring provisions in SB 386, that they could be somewhat time consuming and difficult to navigate. Do you think that you have the sort of time to get that job done, to follow all the provisions of that statute and afford people the opportunity to come back if they want to?
Our hardworking human resources team has laid out a timeline for all the notifications and the callbacks. The challenge will be people that have been gone for 2 years is finding them. And we're going to make every effort. We're going to follow the letter of the law. Plus, we really want to do a high touch and welcome the Palms employees back. They're super important to us. So yes, it does take some time and there's a lot of steps, but we have a plan to do that, both in person and virtually.
Okay, I appreciate that. The the new resort, am I saying it right if I say Yamava? Yeah, okay. And I saw a billboard for it driving up the 15th today. So congratulations on opening and congratulations on the price point that for those room nights at $700, $800, $900 a night. Maybe a little outside the midweek February Vegas market. Are you going to try to keep these properties linked, comparable? Can you describe a little bit about that relationship and from the Las Vegas locals perspective, are you going to be trying to get them to drive to California?
Our properties are very different, and I actually haven't had a chance to see the new property. I hope to in the future. We will be targeting locals and tourists, of which we know many are from Southern California, Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Washington, kind of West Coast. Plus, we do a little, obviously the way the Las Vegas market lays out. We will be priced according to market conditions and according to our room product. And we're working on all of that now, launching our website. So I don't believe our rate strategy will be very much tied to theirs. Obviously, the costs in Southern California are a lot different than Las Vegas, which is why we have a thriving business in Las Vegas. So I believe if you wanted to talk about Yamava property, maybe we should have Lawrence come up and talk about that.
I think the one key difference here is we have 432 rooms there, and I think there's 130,000 rooms plus on the strip, right? So it's very different from a supply and demand standpoint, and it's a very, very different, busy property too, with more than 12 million visitors a year. And so from a comp perspective and a room rate perspective, the strategy is going to be very different from a rate perspective versus Las Vegas.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sure.
Anyone else have any additional matters? Well, I will echo the comments of my fellow commissioners in welcoming you to Las Vegas. This has certainly been very exciting for me to participate in as one of my very first or second meeting as a chair since my appointment. I would say to you that I understand, having reviewed the transcript from the meeting before the board, which I find to be, I don't know, I think it's my judicial roots. I prefer that to watching the video, even though I watch part of the video. I've read the transcript and I understand your concerns about the letter and the message that you're concerned that it sends. The problem for me is that we rely on the significant vetting of the structure and sensitivity to the precedent that the board gives careful attention to before we get presented with all these materials to make a decision. And again, going back to the judicial roots, I think that for me has a lot to do with making it a condition, not because there's anything concerning that's already done. It's, as you mentioned at the board meeting, something that happens regularly and there's nothing special about it. And I agree with everything you said. The only thing I would say is this is precedent. And because of that, if there's a motion, I'll entertain it. If that involves posing any additional conditions, I'm not asking to add a condition for the finance documents. I accept that you'll send them over.
We will. And Chair Tagliata, if I could just address your comment about precedent setting. Obviously, it is precedent setting in that this is the first Native American tribe that's going to own a hotel and own and operate a hotel in Las Vegas. However, I think from a license, and it is the first time a Native American tribe is utilizing the private equity model, but the private equity model that underpins this has existed since 2003. And again, the non-interference agreement is clearly an element of that structure. And there was never a discussion during the investigation process about it, but obviously when it was raised, we had no issue with it. So we think, while there are precedential elements of this, I think from a gaming regulatory control standpoint, this is a road well worn and both well known by the board and its staff, as well as known by the gaming attorneys, as well as myself, Ms. Okerberg.
Perhaps I'll ask the chair of the board just to clarify. I appreciate that at the time the recommendation of the conditions were made, that you didn't have, and now you have. And so, so I just want to make sure when that recommendation was made, did you anticipate that recommendation to be regardless of whether the letter was provided in advance or not?
Madam Chair, Bryn Gibson for the record. We did anticipate that they would turn the record or turn the letter around quickly. So we added the condition, at least in my in addition, in order to create a record and to establish precedent.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else have any additional questions? There being no additional questions, I think this matter is ready for a motion.
Madam Secretary, I would move for approval of non-restricted item number 1 as read into the record by Madam Secretary with the additional conditions, with the conditions as set forth in the record and the additional condition proposed by the board. Is that adequate?
Regarding the letter,
Yes, regarding the non-interference letter.
the date of December 13th, 2012.
Well, I don't know
I'm
that
sorry,
the condition.
Commissioner Solifrini, that's condition number 6 is the non-interference agreement
Okay.
letter. So I don't think there's a need to add anything to the
Right. So,
recommended
yeah,
condition
no, I apologize with that one included
as recommended.
as recommended by the Gaming Control Board. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is to approve with all the conditions recommended by the board. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to make sure that you've read draft number 1 dated as of 11/10/21, and that's acceptable.
Commissioner Cohen, under the board's recommendations, I assume the second draft number 2 dated 11/23 is in your materials. That's the order the board recommended, and we are fine with that. So again, I think it would be, the recommendation would be for approval per draft number 2 of the order, and that's conditioned by the board.
Okay, so you said November 23rd?
Yes, November 23rd, draft number 2.
Okay.
And that's the one the board recommended of.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. And on behalf of the applicants and the tribe, thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. Happy holidays.
Okay, at this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
on the record. Thank you for your patience. Madam Secretary, please.
Non-restricted number 4, the applications of MGM Resorts International and Mandalay Resort Group LLC for amendments to their order of registration and the application of Aria Resort and Casino Holdings LLC doing business as Aria Resort and Casino for licensure to operate gaming salons. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with the conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have disclosures on this item.
Okay, I have a disclosure to make on this item. I believe that this information was widely reported in the media. However, in an abundance of caution, I'm going to make the disclosure that I previously, in my career in alternative dispute resolution related to mass torts, was involved in the resolution of the 1 October matter, and then subsequently retained by plaintiff's counsel to be one of 2 allocation judges, if you will, retired. That matter has long since concluded as far as the resolution, and as far as the allocation, my involvement and decision-making in that has also long since concluded. In my view, this would not cause a reasonable person's independent judgment to be affected by this relationship, and therefore I will participate in the consideration of this matter. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I also have a disclosure with respect to this item. With respect to non-restricted item number 4, I'd like to disclose that I'm a partner at Morris Law Group. My firm and I represented various MGM entities in unrelated litigation, all of which concluded years ago and has nothing to do with this subject matter. I have no pecuniary interest in the item before us, and I do not believe that the independence or judgment of a reasonable person in my situation would be materially affected by this prior relationship, and therefore I intend to participate in deliberation.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. Sean McGinnis with Butler Snow on behalf of MGM Resorts International and Aria Resort Casino here for this matter. With me to my left is Mark Fever, Senior Vice President, Chief Financial Officer of Aria. Also in attendance is Pat Madamba, Senior Vice President, Legal Counsel for MGM Resorts International, and Chandler Pohl, Vice President, Legal Counsel of MGM Resorts International. This matter is a fairly straightforward matter. It involves some private gaming salons, private public gaming salons that they're constructing at Aria that they want to launch. And because of the nature of the regulations, that requires that we have an agenda item. It also requires that the amendment, that the order of registration that we have be amended to reflect the addition of the gaming salons at Aria. So if it's okay with you, I was going to have Mr. Lefevre just sort of walk through, just give a brief summary like you did to the board about what the project entails.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark Lefevre again. Appreciate the time, Chairman, Executive Secretary, and Commissioners. So what we're here today to talk about is we started back in 2018 to renovate some of our villas. We have 17. And we've taken 2 villas out and we're making it into a private gaming salon, 3 different separate salons, all connected at various times. They will be completely private. They'll be on our 57th floor. Obviously, it's not 57, but we call it our 57th floor. And then we also have a request for 6 of our salons that are down on the main casino floor to turn into public and private at various times in accordance with the same regulations that most of the others are doing. MGM, Bellagio, Venetian, Wynn, all have these salons, and we think it's a competitive advantage for us to also join the group based on our clientele. Any questions?
Any of the commissioners have any
I
questions?
had just a question, if I may. I just wanted to clarify, our materials indicated that these were that you were seeking use of these salons for the holiday New Year celebrations and Chinese New Year's and that type of thing. Are they going to be used for other purposes throughout the year as demand calls for it?
Yes, they're open. They'll be open 24/7, depending on if we have the clientele in-house to do it. There'll be at times where we'll open all 3. Obviously, Chinese New Year would be a great year. Super Bowl, another good time, but basically it'll be dependent. They're ready to go 24/7, but it'll be dependent on the clientele.
Perfect. And I
And-
think that's what it indicated. I probably was reading too much into it, but I just wanted to make sure in other places it said they would be open 24 hours a day. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Just quickly as a point of clarification, so you have pit number 9 salon, that's gaming salons 1 through 3. Is that correct?
Sorry?
It said pit 9, the pit 9 salon is gaming salons 1 through 3. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Mhm.
And that's on the 57th floor.
Yeah.
And then you have the salon privé, which is gaming salons 5 through 10. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is a $300,000 minimum the same for all of them?
Correct. For them to be private.
Okay.
Yes. hmm
Okay. Thank you.
We obviously are gonna look for something a little higher than that, but yes,
Okay.
300 is a requirement.
And so before is the 53rd revised order of registration, correct?
Yes, the draft of the registration is fine, and as are the conditions that the board placed on it.
I have no further questions. I'm prepared to make a motion unless there are any questions, Chair.
I'm sorry, could I just,
Of course.
because I didn't hear what you said, I apologize. You said that you have no problem with any of the conditions.
No, there's no problem with any of the conditions. The conditions are fine, and the draft order is fine.
Okay, thank you.
There's one condition on, we need a door on one of the salons that are downstairs in the process of being made today. So it'll be in, I believe, before the next 30 days. And I think the requirement's 90.
Okay, I have Commissioner Keycapper has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so our report indicates that salons 1 through 3 could have up to 22 table games, and the salons 5 through 10 could have 38. Is that accurate? Because the reason I ask is when I look at the diagrams that are submitted with our materials, I count significantly fewer tables.
Yeah, so I think the little confusion there is obviously we'll have multiple floor setups. The salons, each of the salons roughly could take 3 to 4 at a time, but we'll have many opportunities to switch out. So whether it's a baccarat or a roulette table or craps, and I think that's what it's referring to.
And then do those diagrams then for each different setup, get submitted to the board?
Yes, they have been. And I believe they're coming today, actually, to take a look at the camera angles.
Then for the salons 5 through 10 that are on the main casino level, if those the retractable doors are opened up and it's available for public gaming, then the minimum standards don't apply. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think that is all my questions. Thank you. Appreciate it, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'm prepared to make a motion for non-restricted item number 4. Move for approval as recommended by the Gaming Control Board and is read into the record by Madam Secretary, and including all of the conditions as proposed and recommended.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right, it appears there's none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 5.
Non-restricted number 5 is the application of Felicia Ray Hendricks for finding of suitability as an officer of Penn National Gaming, Inc. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. I believe we have a recusal on this item.
Madam Chair, thank you. Based on NRS 281A 420, I need to disclose that I am employed by McDonald Carano, whose attorneys represent the applicant in this matter. And while I've had no discussions with the applicant or their attorneys, and we have firewalls in place to ensure that no such conversations occur, I believe the prudent course of action on this matter is for me to recuse myself from the commission's consideration, considering I do have in a private capacity to counsel.
Thank you. All right, at this time, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Madam Secretary, A.G. Burnett with the law firm McDonald Carano here representing Penn National Gaming, Inc. and Miss Felicia Ray Hendricks, who's before you today. She's here for a finding of suitability as an officer of Penn National, and she spoke at length in front of the Gaming Control Board regarding her personal background. I'm sure she's happy to do that again if you'd like. However, we thought we would go ahead and turn it over to questions if you would so choose.
Well, I guess if any of the commissioners to hear from her, they could certainly let me know. Otherwise, if they want to dive into questions or have any comments.
I wouldn't mind a brief presentation, please.
Sure, thank you. Chairwoman and commissioners, it is an honor to be here today. After following the gaming sector for over 20 years, it's been a dream come true to be CFO of Penn National Gaming, a company that I've known really well for a long time and have respected tremendously. And I do stand by you in front of you today with deep humility and gratitude and respect, given the leadership role that Nevada has played regarding gaming, not only in the U.S. but globally. Just as a point of background, I was born and raised in New York. I went south to the University of Virginia, where I was an English major. After college, I worked for 2 years at a law firm as a paralegal. To huge respect for the legal profession, but I would have made a horrible lawyer. So I went to business school to get my MBA. Also at the University of Virginia at the Darden School of Business. I returned to New York to begin a long career in Wall Street, most of which time was spent at Lehman Brothers and Barclays as a equity research analyst covering gaming, lodging, and leisure. Which obviously incorporated the casino industry. I resigned from Barclays about a year ago and joined Penn at the end of February as CFO and Executive Vice President.
Thank you. As far as questions,
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
I noticed, your materials say that you live in Pennsylvania. Are you planning on relocating, or is this sort of a role that you can do remotely?
Yeah, it's a role that I can do and I have been doing remotely. I continue, my family and I, we continue to live in New York City and I work remotely from there. About 1 week a month, the entire executive committee or executive group from Penn gets together in various locations, whether it's Pennsylvania or Las Vegas, Atlantic City, at our properties. So, but it is a remote role for now.
Okay, thank you. And I misspoke. Yeah, you live in New York and I know the materials indicated you frequently travel to Pennsylvania
Correct.
for meetings there, but you'll
I live in New York.
going to the different properties as needed.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Just a brief request about an update. I know that you've never been licensed here in Nevada with the Gaming Commission and that you filed 27 applications in 22 different jurisdictions. And I think 12 were approved last time I viewed the presentation before the board. Do you have an update on anything else that's been approved since?
My most recent was New Jersey. I don't know if that's on your list.
Okay, I don't know if that's part of the 12 council, do you know?
I do not know.
Okay.
We can certainly find out, though.
And then also as part of our materials, your strategic CFO, right? That's a full title. I noticed that the general and admin operating expenses doubled from 2018 and there was a huge increase in the impairment losses. Can you briefly discuss that?
Yeah, I mean, the impairment loss, this was before I joined,
Yes.
but the impairment losses were a function of COVID and all of our casinos shutting down, and then the accounting rules and regulations would require those impairments. Since then, obviously, all of our properties are open and we haven't had any updated impairment losses or
Good.
charges.
I noted that was substantial. I anticipated that was the reason. I just wanted clarity for the record. And I wanted to comment just briefly. I watched presentation before the board and I wanted to thank you for being so candid and forthcoming. It was reiterated over and over again that you had nothing to hide. You were honest. You were apologetic about some of the issues that were related to the nanny and ultimately you used, I think, my home pay starting in January of 2013. So I want to say again, to be candid and forthcoming is so important and it shows honesty and integrity. And so I just appreciated you being so forthcoming with the investigation and interviews and of course before the board. And I assume there's nothing you'd like to add about that.
I appreciate your comments very much. That's how I try to live my life and my husband as well. Just being honest and under a pretty stringent set of or integrity, following integrity. I don't really have anything to add since then. I think I updated everything to the board 2 weeks ago.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I have nothing else.
So the materials say that you had temp approval in New Jersey in June this year.
Yes.
Casino, not racing, because racing I think was approved.
Mhm.
So when you mentioned earlier that New Jersey was the latest, are you referring to that or you got the permanent?
Permanent, yep.
Oh, congratulations. And when was that?
It was within the past few weeks.
Did anyone else have anything else? I too appreciate very much your candor with the board and with the commission, and appreciated your comments at their meeting. And so I would take note of, excuse me, one of the downsides of going last is that I'm repeating things that others have said, but it's important. Okay, so thank you for that. Is there anything else? All right, at this time, I think it's proper for a motion.
I move for approval of non-restricted item number 5 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Gaming Control.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
And so there are all in favor, none opposed, and for the record, Commissioner Keycapper did not participate in this matter as he recused. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 6.
Non-restricted number 6 is the application of Strategic Gaming Management LLC doing business at Big Wheel Casino Battle Mountain for a non-restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with the conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Thank you so much. I do have a disclosure. Big Wheel Casino and Strategic Gaming Management LLC are identified as client-related for a differently named entity that is a client of Lewis Roca, the law firm where I'm a partner, in which matter I'm not personally involved. I make this disclosure in abundance of caution. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item, and I do not believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and therefore I intend to participate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, Scott Shearer of Brown Sing Hyatt Farber Schreck, appearing on behalf of the applicant Strategic Gaming Management. Appearing today in Carson City is Mr. Grant Lincoln, CEO of Strategic Gaming Management. And I want to thank you for allowing him to appear from Carson City. He has had to be away for a little while and needed to spend some time at Baldini's and Sparks, and appearing from Carson City this week has allowed him to spend more time there and take care of some of the things he needed to take care of. This application is for a non-restricted gaming license at Big Wheel Battle Mountain. It's a slots only license at a new truck stop to be built or is currently under construction just off of Interstate 80 in Lander County. It will be very similar to the Big Wheel Lovelock operation that SGM ran until recently, and for which it still serves as the slot route operator. Mr. Chris Gump, who is the general manager at Baldini's, will also oversee Big Wheel Battle Mountain. The company will hire a full-time manager in Battle Mountain who will report to Mr. Gump. Mr. Gump will rotate weekly visits with the company's CFO and its IT slots manager. So he will personally be on site every third week. They will combine visits to Battle Mountain with visits to Lovelock as part of their responsibilities as the slot route operator there. As you probably know, it's about an hour and a half from Sparks to Lovelock and about another hour and a half from Lovelock to Battle Mountain. So each of these managers should be able to visit both locations in one very long day. The entire management team will also be available by phone 24/7 should any incidents arise. They have computer generated reports and systems as well to keep track of the operation, and if physical presence is required at other times, they will jump in the car and head out to Battle Mountain. SGM operated in Lovelock for 9 years using a very similar model and without incident, and we are confident they'll be able to do the same in Battle Mountain. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
When is construction expected to be completed?
Let me, I believe it's the end of the year, but let me, so soon, but let me pitch that to Mr. Lincoln, he'd see if he has any updates.
Yeah, good morning, Chair and members of the commission. The facility is currently slated for completion on December 27th.
So it's close. Okay,
Yes.
thank you for that update. I was just curious.
And when do you plan to open if it's completed on the 27th?
I think the answer to that is,
The 27th of.
that's
seconds
dependent on
after?
Lander County licensing. So we'll also need the local liquor and gaming licenses. And so as soon as those are granted by Lander County, which typically Lander County's process will require those to follow the approval here today, should it be granted.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else have any additional questions?
I just have one quick question. Christopher Lewis Gump, what was he licensed as in 2019? He was licensed as the key employee, as the general manager at Baldini's. That's where I know the name. Okay. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, since the property is still not completed, I'm assuming the surveillance system still has not been installed and inspected at this point.
It has not been inspected. I don't believe it's been installed yet either.
That,
So
that's one of the conditions the board recommended. So of course that'll have to happen beforehand.
yes, and all the conditions are fine. We're comfortable with them and supportive of those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just for a quick clarity of the record, I understand that there are 45 additional new games, and there's going to be a swapping out with some of the, I don't want to say tired games, but the older games. Can somebody just give me a quick summary of the additional 45 games?
Let me again turn that one over to Mr. Lincoln.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's basically, we took about another 50 plus games for our floor at Baldini's and to upgrade the floor. And then we took, I wouldn't call it tired games either. I said we took titles that still moved the 1 to 2 year old boxes and move those out there because it gives us the chance to use the new games where we have the highest utilization.
Thank you so much for that clarification. I have no further questions.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, sir, for your appearance in Carson today. It looks like this matter is in proper form for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval of non-restricted item number 7 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Game Control Board.
Is it 6 or 7?
I'm sorry, 6.
Okay.
I turned the page right.
Any discussion on the vice chair's motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. Thank you very much. Thank you,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 7.
Non-restricted number 7 is the application of Northern Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. for a transfer of interest. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. My name is Cannon Smith, and I'm General Counsel for Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. I'm before you today on non-restricted item number 7, which is the request to transfer the 100% interest of Northern Nevada Restaurant Services from Richard Craig Esty to Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. Northern Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. operates one casino in Sparks, Nevada. It originally was licensed separate from NRSI because Mr. Esty had partners in the location. Subsequently, in 2008, he bought out his partners and has since then owned 100% of the interest there. The catalyst for this request relates to the other item that's listed on the agenda for informational purposes only, which concerns the request, which was approved as conditioned by the board to relocate that casino that's operated in Sparks by Northern Nevada Restaurant Services. Mr. Esty decided that because NRSI is funding the development of that casino, it would be easier to transfer interest to make it a subsidiary rather than deal with financing between the two companies. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
It's my understanding from reviewing the materials and Trump that they have all the approvals from Sparks.
That's correct.
And just as a point of clarification, this is really just estate planning, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then what percentage of the properties are Dottie's? I know it says most of the properties are the Dottie's properties.
Just on, I would say probably, 2/3 to 3/4 of the properties are Dottie's properties.
All right. I have no further questions. It's pretty straightforward.
Commissioner Keycapper?
Thank you. If you could talk just a little bit about the development plan for the new Points Casino on Google Earth still has it as naked land. So
Certainly, if it would be okay with the commission, I'd ask Ms. Paula Graziano, who's NRSI and NRSI's president, to come and speak to that. I'm familiar with the application. The operations of the locations is really not something that I have deep information on.
Thank you. My name is Paula Graziano. I'm president of Nevada Restaurant Services. In this location, we're planning on moving our license to this area, and we will operate a points casino there and have a couple other themed locations that we operate currently.
so it's currently a Dottie's location on Torian. Is that
Yes.
right? So that location, the license will move to the new Points Casino on Pullman, which is Crater and Sparks.
Yes, that's correct.
And then what's the timeline for opening that?
We're hoping to open first quarter.
Does anyone have any other questions? All right, thank you very much for answering that. I appreciate it. It appears that there's no additional questions. Then the matters on for our consideration today is in proper form for a motion.
Chair, I would move that we approve non-restricted item number 7 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the board.
Okay, any discussion on the commissioner's motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it.
And thank you, Chair, for approving Mr. Estes' waiver.
Oh,
Appreciate
yes.
that.
Thank you. All right. Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 8.
Non-restricted number 8 is the application of BC Technologies LLC doing business as BC Technologies for licensure as manufacturer and distributor, and the applications of Hagen Bottlen and Bruce Marotti for licensure as sole member, manager, and or key executive as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with the limitation also as noted on the agenda. I believe Mr. Marotti is joining us via Zoom.
Good morning.
Oh, hold on 1 second, sir. Is there a way to, does he
Hold
need
on.
to turn down? Sir, if you could just give us 1 moment. Is there a way for him to, do we turn this down or does he have to do it? I think.
Can you see me?
We can see you, sir.
Yes.
We just need 1 minute.
Okay.
As that. Oh, better.
Maybe she backs away from the microphone a little bit.
No, he's good. If you hear, I think they fixed it.
Okay, great.
Okay, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
We can hear you and we can see you. And at this time, we're going to hear from your counsel and then if you want to start.
Good morning again, Chair Togliatti, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. Again, just for the record, Scott Chair, Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, Schreck. Thank you for waiving the appearance of Mr. Bedallion this morning and for allowing Mr. Marotti to appear by Zoom. As I mentioned at the board meeting, this has been a long road for a startup company. BC Technologies was originally licensed in June of 2018. The company, Mr. Bedallion and Mr. Marotti, were granted 2-year limited licenses with 6 conditions. 5 of those conditions had to be satisfied prior to issuance of the license, and all of those 5 have been satisfied. The 6th commission is for the software to be tested and approved by the technology division. Unfortunately, by the time the license had been issued, BC Technologies lost its original field trial location. And without a field trial location, it could not submit its system for testing and approval. But of course, testing and approval is a requirement before they can market the software or actually install the software at any location. They now have a new field trial location. The MISPA in Tonopah has agreed to host a field trial. They are in the process of applying for their racebook and sports pool license. And so that they will need to obtain that license before the field trial can begin. This, as I mentioned, it's been a long road. So in June of 2020, at the end of the 2-year limited license, a 6-month extension was granted. Of course, in the meantime, we had COVID-19 hit, which caused upheaval in the industry, closures, travel restrictions. There is some international travel involved with this particular investigation, so that made it extremely difficult. We thought we could get that done in the next 6 months, and unfortunately, COVID did not cooperate. So there was another 1-year extension granted in December of 2020 that brings us to today. And we're here today asking for another 1-year extension based on our discussions with the investigations division. Then they believe that that will be sufficient for them to be able to complete the travel and investigations they need to complete. And it will also obviously allow us hopefully to have the system up and operating or ready to get up and operating by the time that this comes back on an agenda.
Thank you.
With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll start with,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is a year gonna make it?
Again, I don't know how much work the investigations division has left to do. I know they've told me they have some travel that they still need to do to complete their investigation, and they believe a year is sufficient.
Including for licensure of the MISPA, the actual trial and.
Yeah, the MISPA is on file, and of course, they've been previously licensed. I don't know how long that's going to take, but we can submit the software now that we have the field trial letter. The way the process works, you can't even submit until you have a location that's agreed to host the field trial. So now that we have that, we can do a submission, and then when we go on field trial, then it will actually be up and operating. So I think that should be able to happen within the next year, I would expect.
And the condition from March 12th, 2019, regarding Mr. Battalion, who's funded. The condition is for the submission finding a suit, right? And is that the investigation that you're still waiting for?
In part, yes. So Vahagan Battallion's father, Vahe Battalion, is the principal funder of he has lent significant amounts to the company to get it started up. And one of the conditions was that he file an application for a finding of suitability. He has filed that application. That investigation is ongoing. That one may still require that one. And then there was also an application for the a key employee, and that's Armin Vardanian. He now lives in Southern California, but previously did live in Armenia. So I don't know whether the investigations division's additional travel is related to Mr. Vardanian or Mr. Battalion or both, to be honest.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just briefly, thank you. And so it's my understanding that the investigation is about 85% completed. Is that accurate?
That is consistent with what I've been told, yes. But again, I'm not privy to the everyday details. I'm going to respond when the investigations division asks me to respond to questions or provide information. But yeah, based on our discussions, that is consistent with our discussions, yes.
Okay, and one of the missing components of the investigation is there still needs to be a mirroring of the network and the phones and the computers to make an assertion regarding the separateness of the two. Is that correct?
That I was not aware of.
Okay.
I thought that decision had been made previously by the chair. That was one of the conditions, was that the chair at that time had to determine, and obviously it's been several years, the prior chair had to determine that there was sufficient independence. And my understanding was that decision was made administratively by the prior chair.
All right.
Or otherwise, the license could not have been issued
Okay.
initially.
All right. And then, so the date for the application for the MIDSPA, that's in June of 2022, correct?
That sounds like an appropriate agenda date, but I think that's a target date rather than a definitive date.
So it hasn't necessarily been agendized yet.
No, the applications have been filed and the investigation's ongoing, but obviously depending on what happens in the course of the investigation, that may affect when it actually gets on the agenda.
Okay, so that, to me personally, I'm a little bit concerned about the timeline because I know the expiration that's being sought here is midnight of 2022. And I just want to be sure that that's going to be enough time to the extent it's not fully agendized properly for the mitzvah by June of 2022. You might run into some issues and I don't have information from you or Mr. Maradi about the actual timeline for the trial. Do you have some insight so that in case it gets bumped from June to July, well, I'm trying to understand the sufficiency of time.
Yeah, I mean, the field trials typically take anywhere from 60 to 90 days. They can take up to 180 is possible. This condition that the software be approved is not it's not a pre-licensing condition. So the license could be issued in December or could be approved in December of 2022. Even if the field trial was still ongoing, they simply would not be able to sell the system anywhere else until the software was approved.
Okay, then I have no other issues as long as that understanding is clear on the record. Thank you.
All right, there being no other questions, at this time, I think it's in proper form for a motion, these applications.
I'm prepared to make a motion. Chair Tagliati, I move for approval of a non-restricted item number 8 as recommended by the Gaming Control Board and is read into the record by Madam Secretary for a limited license to expire at midnight on December 2022. And I think that's the Nevada Gaming Commission's meeting on the day the item is heard.
Okay, so there is a motion to approve based upon the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board, the limitation as noted. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. And there appears to be none opposed. Thank you, sir, for your appearance.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it.
It's helpful to have you here if we had any questions, so I appreciate you being here.
Thank
via
you.
Zoom.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, council.
Thank you very much and happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
All right, Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted item number 9.
Non-restricted number 9 is the application of Ike Gaming, Inc. for a transfer of interest in the applications of the ILE Irrevocable Trust, the AKREG Irrevocable Trust, the DEH Irrevocable Trust, and the KMEF Irrevocable Trust for registration as holding companies and licensed shareholders. Lastly, of the applications of Ike Lawrence Epstein, Alexandra Kate Robertson Epstein Gudea, Dana Epstein Hofflander, and Katie McNeely Epstein Fine for finding a suitability as a trustee and or beneficiary. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval, and I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Yes, thank you. I do have a disclosure for non-restricted item number 9. Ike Gaming is a client of Lewis Roque, the firm where I'm a partner, in matters unrelated to the application before us today, in which matters I'm not personally involved. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item. I do not believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate.
Okay. Good afternoon. Almost good afternoon.
Good morning.
Thank you for
good
your
afternoon.
patience today. I think as far as who's present, I think it would be good to have that in the record.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati. I'm in Carson City.
Yes.
Members of the commission and Madam Secretary, this is Mike Alonso on behalf of Ike Gaming, Inc. And the applicants read to the record by Madam Secretary. Ike Gaming, Inc. owns and operates the El Cortez Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. And first, I would like to recognize you, Chair Tagliati, and Member Kika and congratulate you on your appointments and welcome you to the Gaming Commission. I haven't appeared before the two of you before. And second, I would like to thank you, Chair, for allowing me to participate via video conference today from Carson City. My clients are in Las Vegas with you. They're sitting there in the front row, and with your permission, I will make the introductions.
Yes, thank you.
First, I'd like to introduce Irving Kenneth Epstein. Mr. Epstein is the chairman of the board, chief executive officer, and currently the largest shareholder of Ike Gaming, Inc. He has been licensed in connection with the El Cortez since the mid-1970s. Next, I would like to introduce Ike Lawrence Epstein. Lawrence is the president of Ike Gaming, Inc. and a member of the board of directors, and he has also been licensed in those capacities and as the trustee and beneficiary of the Ike Lawrence Epstein 1994 Trust, which owns voting securities in Ike Gaming, Inc. Next, I would like to introduce Dana Epstein Hofflander. Ms. Epstein Hofflander has been licensed for many years as a trustee and beneficiary of the Michelle Epstein 2001 Trust, which owns voting securities in Ike Gaming, Inc. Next, I would like to introduce Alexandra Epstein Goodeye. Ms. Epstein Goodeye is the executive manager at the El Cortez and is currently licensed as a director of Ike Gaming and as a trustee and beneficiary of the AKRE Living Trust, which owns equity securities in Ike Gaming, Inc. And finally, I would like to introduce you to Katie Epstein Fine. Ms. Epstein Fine is currently licensed as trustee and beneficiary of the KMRE Living Trust, which owns equity securities in Ike Gaming, Inc. As you all know from the applications, the agenda, and the transcripts and proceedings before the Gaming Control Board, the applications before you today are to complete some estate planning goals for Mr. Kenny Epstein as he is transferring the majority of his shares in Ike Gaming, Inc. to his children through newly formed trusts for the benefit of his children and his grandchildren. I did want to make one final comment, and before we stand ready to answer any questions, but I think it's important to note that Mr. Epstein, in proposing this transfer and transferring the shares, it won't change the fact that he'll continue to be the chairman of the board of directors and chief executive officer of the El Cortez, and he'll be there from an operating standpoint day to day going forward. And with that, Chair Tagliati and members of the commission, we're ready to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here in case anybody has any questions at this time.
Just some brief comments and observations, if I may.
Sure.
So I wanted to say thank you all for coming today. I've known Katie and Lawrence for some time. I think the last time I saw Katie, we were at Commonwealth on the patio looking at El Cortez. So it's so nice to see things coming full circle. So welcome. And Mr. Epstein, I just want to say I commend you so much for the work you've done with the community. I mean, you started years and years ago, and I think 1962, and you have over 500 employees, and what you've done here in downtown Las Vegas is commendable. So I'm so pleased to see everyone here. Welcome, good to see you. It's nice to, in the pandemic, get to actually see the beautiful family here. So thank you so much for coming. I have no questions at all. I'm just happy to see everyone.
I'd like to echo the comments. I love this family. I've known them for decades and decades and decades, and now grandchildren. I mean, it's crazy, you know, how we look this way. And unless anybody else has any comments, or I'm prepared to make a motion.
Any additional questions or comments? All right.
I move for approval of non-restricted agenda item number 9 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board.
Is there any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you. And thank you for your patience.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you all very much and happy holidays.
Thank you, council. Okay. Madam Secretary, please read in non-restricted number 10.
Non-restricted number 10 is the application of Christopher Valmont for licensure as the key executive of IGSR Holdings LLC. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. I believe we have reviewed.
Thank you so much. Louis Roca is the firm where I'm a partner, and my partner is appearing before me today, so I'm recusing myself, and I'll just check out into the next room. Thank you.
And likewise, I have a recusal on this matter. Our firm has been counseled to MEIGSR on a number of occasions over the year. And as such, I just deem it appropriate not to participate in consideration of this matter. And I too will step out of the room. Thank you.
Well, looks like you're stuck with it. All right. If you could, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Togliatti, remaining commissioners. For the record, my name's Glenn Light. I'm a partner at the law firm Lewis Roker. I'm accompanied at the podium by the applicant, Mr. Christopher Balaban. Mr. Balaban serves as the Chief Financial Officer of the Grand Sierra Resort and Casino. If you would like Mr. Balaban to make a brief overview of his background, he's happy to. Otherwise, we
Please.
can jump into questions.
You mind?
No problem.
Okay, we'd appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today. Been in the gaming industry for just over 23 years. Had the opportunity to be in a diverse background from the East Coast to the West Coast to tribal casinos to small local casinos to destination resort casinos, all in the pretty much finance capacity with some operational experience too. From an educational standpoint, I do have a business degree from Florida Atlantic University. I'm sorry, my MBA is from Florida Atlantic University, and my bachelor's is from the University of South Florida. It's a privilege to be here. Guess I went quickly on the first one. More questions maybe with the three of you, so I'd like to open up the questions for you. If you have any for me, please.
Ma'am, thank you for being here. I'd just like to hear an update on the property. How's it doing? Is it recovering as well as the properties have in Las Vegas?
Sure, no question. Good question. So from the Reno market, I think we see the recovery coming from the Reno market itself. And I would like to believe that with a lot of the capital infusion that's happened from the MEI GSR into the GSR, you're maintaining our fair share and improving with the property too. So yes, I'm happy to report that we are doing well. Yes.
Good. That's good to hear. I haven't had the opportunity to be in Northern Nevada for since the pandemic started. So it's nice to hear that things are going well.
Christmas decorations up and all, looking beautiful up there. So we welcome you to come see.
I don't have anything.
I have had the occasion to travel to Northern Nevada for work, and I have stayed at your property, work unrelated to the work of the commission, and it was hopping. It was hopping.
Yeah.
So good for you. I'm glad to hear it. I would note that just like people before us, you had to wait a long time to get your matter heard. And we really do appreciate you coming here and sitting here and waiting just in case we have the questions. And we do like to, get to meet you and hear from you. But it looks like at this point, did you have something else? That this matter is appropriate for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And recognizing my colleague to my left needs to come back up to Reno to see your beautiful Christmas decorations
Yes.
and everything else.
We'd love to see you.
I would move that we approve non-restricted item number 10 as recommended by the board and read into the record.
All right. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, that's 3 ayes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Happy
your
holiday
patience.
season.
Thank you, council. Yeah. All right, are we getting, can we get? Our team without them. Yeah. I mean, and I'm there in the middle of the week, Wednesday, and I'm like. Yeah. Mhm. All right, Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 10? That's where we are, right?
That was non.
Oh, I'm sorry, 11. 3. Maybe I need a break. Okay, so we finished non-restricted number 10, correct?
Yes, we did.
All right, so that brings us to restricted item held up for discussion in restricted number 3.
Correct.
Thank you.
Restricted number 3 of the applications of RB Properties, Inc. for a transfer of interest and the application of the Ashland M. Sands Separate Property Trust as shareholder and registration as a holding company. Lastly, of the application of Ashland Sands as sole trustee and beneficiary, the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval. I believe we have a refusal on this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on NRS 281.420, I need to disclose that I'm employed by McDonald Toronto, whose attorneys represent the applicant in this matter. While I haven't had no discussions with the applicant's attorneys regarding this matter, McDonald Toronto has firewall protocols to ensure such discussions take place. The applicant is represented by a person to whom I have a commitment in personal and private capacity, and as such, the course of action is to recuse myself from the commission's consideration.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dennis Gutwald with the law firm of McDonald Carano. With me today is Ashlyn Sains and her father, Robert Bilbray. With your permission, I'll have her tell you a little bit about herself and we'll open up for questions.
Please. Thank you.
Well, I could say good afternoon now, Chairman, Commissioners, and Secretary. Thank you for having me this afternoon. A little bit about myself, born and raised in Laughlin. My dad's had a gaming license for over 35 years in the state of Nevada, so I grew up in the gaming life. Went to school through Laughlin, graduated with a bachelor's at University of San Diego, but graduated in 2010. The economy was hard, so I had a real estate degree at that time and wasn't the time to hit the streets. So I was so honored to be able to transfer out to Washington, D.C. and work for Senator Majority Leader Harry Reid for a while, and then came back to in 2011 to RB Properties. I've been not personally in front of the board before. This is my first time, but I've had 4 different licenses before you guys as key employee officer and director, expanded, and then now. So I operate and vice president currently, officer and director on the licenses. We have 6 restricted gaming licenses in Laughlin, 2 C stores, 4 taverns, and then I also manage a light industrial commercial 68,000 square foot warehouse. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Time, questions from the commission?
Ms. Sains, thank you for being here. You said you're currently the vice president, right, of the company. Can you tell me a little bit about your responsibilities?
I oversee about an average of 45 to 50 employees. Oversee store managers, food and beverage managers, gaming slot techs. I deal with everything from, if I got a bag ice on a day that we're busy on Memorial Day down there, I bag ice. If we've got I oversee mostly everything in the company. I think my dad has taken over insurance and mostly in legal things, but everything else, boots on the ground, day-to-day operation of, payables, contracts, everything like that is what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
Do you have a corporate office or do you split your time between the various locations?
We have a corporate office, which is in the same business complex that I own and operate, and we have one of our taverns in there as well.
Right.
So, but all of our licenses are within 2 miles of each. We only have 2 traffic lights in Laughlin, so I can get anywhere within 5 minutes.
Been to Laughlin many a time.
Yeah.
Great place to visit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't have any further questions.
Any additional questions?
Just love to see the family business. You've done such an excellent job, Mr. Bilbray, with your daughter. I can tell she's sharp and bright, and that's the future. So well done. And I have absolutely no reservations or questions. Thank you.
Anyone else? I too have no reservations about approval on this matter. Looks ready for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move for approval of restricted item number 3 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the record should reflect that Commissioner Keycapper recused from this matter and did not participate in the discussion or vote. Thank you very much.
And a special thanks to David Bradford, Agent Bradford, for his good investigation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you. And thank you for your COVID compliance work. That's excellent work. Just wanted to mention that.
Okay, Madam Secretary, I believe that concludes our restricted items and brings us to our gaming employee registration appeal.
That is correct. You have 1 gaming employee registration appeal for your consideration pursuant to regulation 5.109. That item is Jordan Lawson.
Is he here?
I don't believe he is here. So the record should reflect his absence at this time. Based upon, I would just ask the commission if you've had an opportunity to review the record and the matters submitted by Mr. Lawson for the appeal. Is there anyone who hasn't been able to review every document submitted and the transcript?
Do we make observations on the record? There's nobody to ask questions to. I don't know if we need to just establish a record.
I think we have the record from the board that we're relying on. I think Mr. Lawson had, obviously, that includes our paragraph asking them and apparently us to reconsider. Other than that, I don't know that his input can be considered beyond what we have in the record because he's not here.
I was just personally concerned with the observations that were made by the board. There were multiple arrests over the years, and it seems like the frequency is getting closer and closer. I know that the first charge was the felony in 2012 for the child endangerment, and then again in 2014, the child endangerment and gross misdemeanor charges, and again in 2017, and then child abuse in 2019, and battery in 2020, and possession of marijuana with the intent to sell in 2020, and again something in 2021 with a felony battery misdemeanor. And I do understand and I appreciate the employment that he's taken on as a security guard can sometimes give rise to some of these altercations, but I'm just not comfortable without some explanation from Mr. Lawson today. I had some questions for him and I just don't have the opportunity to ask that. So I am inclined to adopt the recommendation of the board absent my ability to ask further questions. But I'm interested in any other thoughts.
Any additional comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, the fairly extensive history of arrests and some guilty pleas that tend to mix alcohol, children, and firearms gives me significant pause for allowing for the registration of someone as an armed security guard. And I just wouldn't be prepared to turn the board at this point.
Yes. I share my colleagues, concerns over the background is set forth in the reason for us to do anything other than follow the recommendation as set forth in the record, and further to follow the Game Control Board's recommendation to prohibiting he can't come before us for a 2-year period.
So,
And Chair, if I may note something.
Yes.
I know that the board could have restricted it for the maximum of 5 years. That's permitted under Reg 5.109, and they've used their discretion and only done it for the 2-year prohibition. So I'm comfortable with that. So I just wanted to note that we're not giving him the full amount, which is the maximum 5 years. It's 2. And it doesn't prevent him from working elsewhere, just not specific rubric of work.
Okay. As far as this appeal, I would note that when you analyze the severity, relevancy, and recency of the events, that supports the board's decision in this matter. Additionally, even if you were to not consider the most recent misdemeanor battery that was not prosecuted, presumably based upon the review of the reports that it was a dual comp situation that occurred during his employment while he was trying to trespass someone, there is significant concerns throughout this record that are raised to me that he is not appropriate at this time for the position of armed security guard. And so I believe based upon my review of the order signed by Board Member Watkins, that we are basically looking at a consensus for a motion to deny the appeal. Is that correct? And does someone want to make that motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that the commission deny Mr. Lawson's appeal of the decision of the control board.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. The appeal is denied. Okay. Agenda item, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I phrasing it incorrectly, or is it not an appeal that's denied?
Chair, it would just be a sustaining.
A sustaining.
The objection.
Objection sustained. That sounds familiar.
Judicial roots again.
Objection sustained. Madam Chair, I would rephrase my motion for the record to sustain the decision of the control board in this now.
So there's been a motion to sustain the objection made by the board. And there's no discussion.
Wait. Do we also have to add the 2 years? It's part of, we're fine without it.
Are you keeping the recommended 2 years?
Yes,
And
they were fine. Okay.
Okay, so the motion, with no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And aye for myself, so that means the objection is sustained. Thank you. Appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Okay, next agenda item, please.
Next item is for your consideration is a petition for regulation amendments as filed by Fenimore on behalf of AGEM as noted on the agenda.
Good afternoon, Chair Tagliati, members of the Commission, Madam Secretary, members and staff of the board. I'm Dan Reeser with Fenimore, and with me is Marcus Prater, Executive Director of the Association of Gaming Equipment Manufacturers, AGEM. We're appearing on our petition for adoption and amendment of regulations filed by AGEM on November 15, 2021, in accordance with NRS 463-145, 143, 150, 673, and 677. We do have, with leave of the chair, a brief affirmative presentation.
Please.
AGEM's petition asks the Commission to adopt proposed Nevada Gaming Commission Regulations 1.070, 1.072, and 5.242, all new numbers, and proposed amendments to Nevada Gaming Commission Regulations 1.137 and 2.240. These rule change facilitate licensees' operations of associated equipment, cashless wagering systems, games, gaming devices, and interactive gaming using cloud computing services of registered information technology service providers or pursuant to an exemption, a licensed manufacturer. AGEM requests for this purpose that the Commission accept the petition today, thus allowing the rulemaking project to proceed under the procedural requirements of the Nevada Gaming Control Act. By way of background, a decade ago, the Nevada legislature authorized the board and the commission to implement, and the board and the commission did implement, administrative rules providing flexible solutions allowing state gaming licensees to harness rapidly evolving technologies to remotely store, access, and operate associated equipment, games, gaming devices, cashless wagering systems, and systems supporting sports books and race pools and sports books from locations that are not on the premises of that licensee's establishment. The regulations we are proposing are the next logical step in the technological driven regulatory process and the progress we think necessary in permitting licensees to use cloud computing services for these operational requirements, as do many governments, educational institutions, and companies. As we observed in the petition, in the context of the Commission's existing regulations, cloud computing services can be understood as a type of information technology service that is provided from a virtual hosting center. AGEM's petition and the proposed rule changes are the product of a working group of representatives of several of Nevada's leading licensed technology providers who are members of AGEM, and it was developed following conceptual conversations with the Nevada Gaming Control Board. That collaborative effort led to the proposed draft of the amendments that are attached to the regulations, which make changes to some existing regulations and provide new language for some additional rules. It is that foundation, we believe, that is a solid basis to move forward with workshops and a hearing process under the Act before the board and the commission. And on that basis, we urge the commission to sanction the rulemaking project contemplated by the petition. Mr. Prater and I are available and welcome any questions that the commission may have.
Start. Commissioner Keycapper?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Madam Chair. Mr. Reeser, I have a few questions. Certainly understand where you're going, and don't disagree with intent. But I'd like to ask a few questions before perhaps it goes back to the board, so they have regulatory workshop, they could address it. In your definition of cloud computing services, can you tell me what you mean by deployed among jurisdictionally diverse locations?
Certainly. Cloud computing is pursuant to the attachment we gave you with the petition, is really a virtual location based on the use of servers that may not necessarily be in the state of Nevada. So by comparison to your hosting center regulation, that regulation requires that that server be sitting at switch or at some other location physically in the state of Nevada. Cloud computing does not work that way. The dynamics and the power of cloud computing is, first of all, the licensees don't have to pay for the servers. So there is a huge cost savings to them. The cloud service provider does that, but does so ubiquitously from locations all over the United States or perhaps globally, depending on who the provider is. So for instance, that it will go to the most efficient, immediate server that can provide that service. And that may not be in Nevada, it may be in California, it may be in New York. And so that clause in the definition is to make clear that we are talking about traditional cloud services, cloud computing services that may not have may not be using a facility in Nevada.
Right. I guess I asked the question because the way I read it, it would sort of requires that they be geographically diverse, so that you couldn't use exclusively servers in Switch's Las Vegas facility. So is that the intent that I think of it as a network that is required to be geographically diverse rather than can be geographically diverse?
Yeah, I don't think that it is intended that it not be permissible that it be solely based in the state. I think the discussion that might happen at the workshop is, does that really make it a hosting center? In other words, if it's going to only use servers in Nevada, the record that might develop in a workshop and before the board would be, well, that's a hosting center. It's only if it's going to be ubiquitous jurisdictionally. So I don't think we're not trying to make that choice now. We are defining, though, cloud computing services consistent with the definitions provided in the materials we gave you from the federal government on use of cloud computing services by governments and other entities, and also pursuant to the ISO standards.
And so as it relates to hosting centers and the change in definition, is there, I couldn't find hosting centers referenced anywhere else in your amended regs. Is there a need to make that change as it relates to the other definitions and regs that are being proposed?
So interestingly, to the point that you initially made, is it ubiquitous or is it in just a server in Nevada? We have made this proposal to vet that issue. In other words, will we want to allow hosting centers to also be multi-jurisdictional, or is there a desire regulatorily through the workshop process to make a hosting center something different than a cloud computing service?
If you were to just change that definition of hosting center, you need all the rest of it?
Oh, would that achieve the result?
Yeah, I mean, if you just said that hosting centers don't need to be physically located in the state of Nevada, do you even need these definitions of cloud computing and everything else?
It is our view that the rest of the regulations are necessary for some very, very basic reasons. The hosting center concept still contains in those regulations, and we do not want to upset. AGEM's intention is not to upset the current regimen being used by hosting centers that are in Nevada, where operators like that product essentially. It's to provide a different and new product. So we're not trying to interfere with the way that regulatory scheme works, which is more facility. It's based on a physical facility where the hosting center segregates physically the servers that are being used by a particular gaming licensee. They're sometimes caged, they're dedicated, and there's nothing else running on those servers typically. And so that is a kind of product that some operators, some casino licensees may want to continue. That regimen is different when you move to cloud computing because that is a virtual location. And so part of the registration process, the overview process that we are suggesting in the new Reg 5242 is to sync that up to the way cloud computing is used. There will be a different way in which I suspect the control board in a mechanical way will examine what's on those servers in a cloud computing context, and their method of inspecting those will be it'll be an electronic way of inspecting that the right software is running. It won't be physically going and putting a box on a server or whatever other method they might be using today.
Okay, I just think that if you were to just remove that situs requirement, it doesn't preclude an entity from having something located in a location. All that work there. Again, I will leave it up to the board in the workshop. Stop there, Madam Chair. I apologize for.
No, that's fine.
I just had a brief comment. I share Commissioner T. Keffer's concern regarding the center, but I don't think that's for us to determine today. I think we need to sort that out through the workshop. But I'm certainly prepared, unless there's any other comment, to make a motion to accept the petition, have a workshop, and then draw it back at a later date.
I just have one quick question. Are there third parties and companies waiting in the wings to get in on this work? I mean, is this kind of?
Are you saying if the regulation were passed?
Correct.
Could the switch be flipped? Well, Mr. Prater can.
Pardon the pun. There's been a lot of puns today because you said sync. I mean, there's been a lot.
So Mr. Prater can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Googles of the world are providing these services every day to business, to government, and to academia.
Well, the difference is with those, if there's an investigation, you got to get a subpoena and you got to get a court order.
No, but
here they're going to be coming, so I was just curious.
So
it might seem like a boutique kind of.
So if a Google, I think there's two mechanisms to be a provider under the regulation. The first is to be a Google and to file an application and become registered as a technology service provider. That is a fairly abbreviated, that's not a non-restricted gaming license process. It is a more limited registration process. There's the other mechanism, which is a licensed manufacturer somebody you already have jurisdiction, could provide this service. They could provide it. I describe it as they could provide vanilla or they could provide chocolate. Vanilla would be, they'll be the provider of the service, but they may contract with the Google to white label that technology. The second is some of the larger, well, I won't prejudge who might want to do it. A manufacturer could decide, for the purposes of serving the gaming industry, I'm going to become a cloud computing company
That's what I
and
was
serve
anticipating.
gaming companies with a special, and using your term, Chair, a boutique product that is gaming driven. I think that's going to, I think this is now me predicting what's going to happen technologically, and that's dangerous for any lawyer. But I suspect that's going to depend on what the gaming licensees, the state gaming licensees, the casinos want to put up there. I could see a Google doing fine with a accounting system, because they do it right now for the United States Department of Administration. I'm not so sure as things evolve that that the boutique product might be putting actually system-based games in the cloud if we go there. That might be a boutique product that Google's not interested in, but the AGEM community might be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I interrupted you when you were about to make a motion. I apologize.
No, Chair. I'd like to make the following motion. I move to accept the petition filed by Fenimore/Dan Reeser on behalf of AGEM to amend NGC regulations 1.070, 1.072, 5.242, 1.137, and 5.240 as a regulation project to request the Gaming Control Board to hold a workshop or workshops to gather information from all interested parties related to these proposed amendments.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, there being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are
Aye.
none. Oh, sorry. Okay. I heard you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you and have happy holidays.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda are the administrative reports. If we could start with Chair Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our January meeting will be on January 5th, one-day meeting. We'll start with non-restricted items at 9 o'clock and restricted at 11. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the Attorney General's office today?
Nothing today, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, let's close with our last agenda item, public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to provide the public an opportunity to comment on gaming related matters. For the record, there is no one in Carson City.
Okay, thank you. Because I can't, for some reason, I can't see those little squares. It's time to go to the optometrist because everybody else can seem to see it. All right. Anyone wishing to make public comment here in Las Vegas, please step forward to the podium. There being no one, that will close our public comment section, and this concludes the Nevada Gaming Commission meeting for the month of December. We are adjourned.